Okay, I guess we should momentarily begin. For those of you who don't know me, I am Lewis. I'm Lewis Friedman. I'm the visiting writer in residence this year at Carthage, and I'm curating the Visiting Writer Series. And our first reader of this season is Peter Gizzi. And Peter is the author of 7 collections of poetry, most recently Archeophonics, which was a finalist for the 2016 National Book Award, In Defense of Nothing, Selected Poems, and Threshold Songs. His honors, which are many, include a Guggenheim Fellowship, a Foundation for Contemporary Arts Award, a Howard Foundation grant, and the Judith E. Wilson Fellowship in Poetry at Cambridge University. He teaches at UMass Amherst. And now I'm done with the part where, as Peter said to me earlier, I read his obituary. So Peter Gizzi's poetry in person really mean a ton to me. Peter's actually the first living American poet that I had any kind of conversation or correspondence with in my life. When I was younger, I sort of would blindly, go through the library, picking out books, reading things. And I happened to pick up, by a very lucky chance, a volume of a poet named Jack Spicer called The Collected Books. And it was huge for me. It was just everything I wanted and imagined poetry could be. And this led me to another book of Jack Spicer's called The Collected Lectures. And I was just obsessed. And I just wanted to know who else was writing like this. I needed to know, was there anyone living who cared about this? And The Collected Lectures of Jack Spicer was edited by Peter Gizzi. So I used the resource that is the World Wide Web. And I sent an electronic mail message to Peter. And Peter immediately responded. I said, who's writing like this? Who's writing like Spicer? And he immediately and generously responded with a long list of poets that I could read. It was long for me. It was like 7 poets. But it was a long list, a long list of poets I could read. And I immediately consumed all of their work as well as Peter's work. And it really was the first time in my life that I felt, the possibility of being part of a kind of living community, living conversation of poets. It was hugely important to me. So I would like to say some things that could sort of give you guys a sense of the experience that I've had, at least, with reading Peter's work, which has been, such a large and significant experience. I've been trying to figure out how to say this really clearly. I'm not able to. But I'll say this with less clarity, perhaps, than I would desire. So Peter's poems, I think they're songs that enter from the deeper than paths between us. They arrive to celebrate and mourn for what the world of our bodies seems to present over and over, a deep possibility of feeling bound in our suffering and loss. When Peter's song threatens to close this possibility, it's pried open by a further softness, by a further risk. The song, Peter tells us, must risk everything for the song. How can we continue in this air, in this place, in this body between us that bears a suffering that exceeds us? We do it with words, Peter says, with words sung. We open ourselves again and again to receive the song, to be sung through, to sing with ourselves. Please welcome Peter Gizzi.
Thank you so much, Lewis. Thanks everyone for coming out, and thanks so much for having me here. I've been really enjoying my stay in Wisconsin. We were just in downtown Carthage, which I thought was sweet. I liked it. I come from a small town in western Massachusetts. Carthage is actually bigger than where I come from. But Lewis picked a few poems for a packet that he gave some of you that are working with him in his class that I met with today. And so I thought, I'm going to read a couple of those poems through this reading. Lewis wanted me to read from my selected poems. And this is one of my earliest poems, and I thought that would be, useful for me to read something at the beginning for some of you who are beginning. And this is a prose poem. Despite your notices. This is my poem the one I was afraid to show you, a poem to provide against the voices that will ultimately ensure my failure in this endeavor. This poem is a pillow, small and embroidered, the satin death pillow used to prop up the face for one last viewing, all attempts of understanding finally and thoroughly erased. This is my poem, the one I tuck under my eyelids when look, is this the one you asked me to read? It wasn't, was it? Is it? Okay, sorry. I haven't read this poem in so long. All right, I won't start again. This is my poem. The one I tuck under my eyelids when looking inhibits the distinctions of what can be seen. And air always present, always there to stimulate the hair at the base of my neck. Insert this chill exactly where you presume to have found me, only to uncover an abandoned parking lot for eyes. Look harder and you will discover we are all matched to this swatch of steel gray that is as wide as the seam in my scrotum but longer than the chalk ray on the board in the classroom to represent infinity. Silent and irreversible, a fault line running from one hole to another forever, that we are drawn together. So see you on the other side, even if we can't represent that which we were hoping to resemble. But for one day, heaven, see the tips of buds swaying in union beneath the spring sky so faint, so blue, that it could only suggest a further devastation, as if we were fated to repeat this day, as if we could. It came and went without the anxiety of anticipation, and its finality of passage and unannounced significance stains us. Good. Even the colors fade, so we can only imagine we were once so alive. Sad nothing can be held so thoroughly we might assimilate it. Only in the letting go will the full concentration of tone bleed into the periphery of our lives and settle into a patina that can never be altered. I surrender my vision thus. Because I don't understand, that joke isn't funny anymore. It cuts me precisely where laughter is a departure from this parlor. I live on Flight 405, departing into an icy altitude, cold and detached. I'm here despite your notices and obituary. That plane didn't crash. It still hovers around my head. The constant hum of its engines reminds me I still haven't landed. I know this by the way a hand like a landing strip will reach over to wave here, here, here. So here again is the earth, not the idea of it, but the clump of dirt and weeds outside my door each day humiliates me. So long. I'm off to my job alone in the clouds where my fathers live, perhaps younger than I am now, having left me to dinners, movies, books, and with this incredible sickness you call enthusiasm. It's a smokescreen, though, for it was me they stuck out there in that winter hole, earth so frozen it came up in slags that still get caught in my throat every time you tell me you love me, so don't. I mate with these voices on the other side. Their memos become the mottos of my solo walk into emblem, as the torn metal of all industrial accidents flowers in my brain. Yeah, I saw the broadcast. Transmission deceived. It's not one I usually read. I haven't read that poem in so long. Made me nervous. But no, it's brings me way back. It's strange to have a selected poems, I have to say. It just means I'm old, I guess. This one is a title I think you'll all know. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. They are right next to you in the lanes, hugging a shoulder. They twitter in rafters calling down to your mess in rays, crescents, the white curled backs of snapshots tucked in a frame, eyes of the dead. There is a gimbal lamp, ledger, a table of solid deal, clocks and militaria, a dirty blotter, its crusty bottle, a plume. There are beetles in bujum, specimen jars decorated with walking sticks, water striders, and luna moths, a treatise on rotating spheres. This swivel chair, worn from some years past, a few doubloons, powder horn, musket bag, and tricorn hat, a cannon, it's yawning, round. They are closer than comfort, closer than night breaking over the mountain face, empurpled, its silhouette ragged, silver, unquantifiable in pixie dusk. Closer than power lines casting shadows on brush, breath, heart ticking the prepared delay as twilight settles in waves and crests, a waterfowl, hooded owl, an avant-garde, a backward glance. In defense of nothing. I guess these trailers lined up in the lot off the highway will do. I guess that crooked eucalyptus tree also. I guess this highway will have to do, and the cars and the people in them on their way. The present is always coming up to us, surrounding us. It's hard to imagine atoms, hard to imagine hydrogen and oxygen binding. It'll have to do. This sky with its macular clouds also, and that electric tower to the left, one line broken free. This is the longest poem I'll read. It's in 5 parts. They're uneven parts. Some are short, some are a little longer. And I wrote this during the Bush administration. And I used a lot of the terms and things come from the New York Times, but they're embedded within a song. But some like the nouns and things like that, like this, I was reading about the tiger man that lived in the DMZ between South and North Korea, who spent his life chasing a tiger that he could only hear but never see. So it's just like I was taking information from the Times as well as things about the war. And the title is A Panic That Can Still Come Upon Me. If today and today I am calling aloud, if I break into pieces of glitter on asphalt, bits of sun, the din, if tires whine on wet pavement, everything humming, if we find we are still in motion and have arrived in Zeno's thought, like if sunshine hits marble and the sea lights up, we might know we were loved, are loved, if flames and harvest the enchanted plain. If our wishes are met with dirt and time, thistle, oil, heirloom, and basil, or the end result is worry, chaos, and if I should know better. If our loves are anointed with missiles, Apache fire, tomahawks, did we follow the tablets the pilgrims suggested? If we ask that every song touch its origin just once and the years engulfed, if problems of identity confound sages, derelict philosophers, administrators, who can say, I am found, if this time you, all of it, this time, now? If nothing save Saturdays at the metro, if rain falls sidelong in the plots, doorways onto mansard roofs, if enumerations of the fall and, if falling, cities rocked with gas fires at dawn, can you rescind the ghost double nakedness, hungry and waning, if children, soldiers, children, taken down in schools, if burning fuel? Who can't say they have seen this, and can we sing this, if in the auroras reflecting the sea, gauze touching the breast? Too bad for you, beautiful singer, unadorned by laurel, child of thunder and scapegoat alike. If the crowd in the mind becoming crowded in streets and villages and trains run next to the freeway, if exit is merely a sign. 2. It isn't all right to want just anything all the time. Be specific, sky. I can read the narrow line above the hills. The day unbraids its pretty light, and I am here to see it. This must be all there is right now in the world. There are things larger than understanding, things we know cannot be held in the mind. If the sun throbs like a drum every 5 minutes, what can we do with this? The 100,000 years it takes a photon to reach the surface of the sun, 8 minutes to hit our eyes. If every afternoon gravity and fire, it's like that here, undressed, unwound. 3. If today and today I am speaking to you, or if you, I, whisper, touch, explain, if they, you, hate those phrases, if we struggle to get to the thing, the body and the other noises, if a W stumbles here even in private, there was this man, we said, everywhere between us, if speech can free us, if summer, fall, winter, spring, the broadcast day spins round my head, its grin stuck out there when I am a tiger in the DMZ, or if I am a tiger man, if no one believes what I see. If behind the Grail and New Elm the pink light saying, welcome, earthling, my biography as an atom, picture of my smile, is this what my body said? If I forget my notebook, if these gaps I feel are also the gaps I am built inside, thinking it's all good. If the sun sharp and hot and still but deep and clarifying, walking its boulevards, if bound by the most ignoble cords, if squatting in time. If every day a struggle, the blue cop speaking, sky arching over nothing, If every struggle, ice cream truck tinkle, interrupting the cosmological. If everyday strife, everyday Spreckenzie, if every day, Is this what my body says, my buddy said? And if I die and begin to lose consciousness in the flag, there was this man, we said, this W here, even in private. I said in my letter, if I see you again. 4. A branch in the scent of pine in summer, the bridge and the water in the creek, the stones and the sound of water, the creek in my body when hair and water flowed over me. If I am a bridge I am standing on, thinking, saying goodbye to myself when I stood by the water in life, thinking of my life, pine boughs, the hill next to water, the sun in the creek on the bridge on my hair, and pine boughs and wind mixed with water, one crow skating by, the life of water, life of thinking and moving, a crow passes by this place in the mind, on my eyes. 5. So the vocalese day imprinted a sound. I'm not stupid. I too unwind in the most circuitous fashion. I undress water directly. Who hasn't seen unnumbered sparrows enter the silhouette of a tree? Why shouldn't I come in from the cold? Sure, there is the monument, the grass and the plate it grows on. If the answer becomes sun, then sun inside, normal things, okay. The ribbon above our heads is not a banner. Scaling this leafy architecture, we say wind, night sky, moon, clouds, stars, if silver stands for syncopation. Indeed, symphonic dailiness is felt order. I have felt it at the back of me, light on the table, the book open. If we struggle for a name, if colors change, if mood is connected to naming, to color, if, say, a ship's in deep water and a piece of sky empties the mind, or when I was frigate-tossed, if I wanted to go all over a word and live inside its name, so be it. There is my body, and the idea of my body, the surf breaking and the picture of a wave. That was a bit gnarly, right? That's Panic. Here are two poems that Lewis put on his list. This one's a small poem called Snow Globe. This house is older than the lilac trusses glistening in winter ice, older than the pack of Winstons on the wire chair, older than the chair as well as this glass of water holding water. Is it older? The house lurks under the sky which has stood over it, a time when this patch was a field, deer maybe shat in it, grazed a few leaves from a sprig now fallen. The house is covered in fresh snowfall, lovely in reflected mercury light, its weary glow damaging to the cardinal flirting between branches of a stalled ornamental maple. Where is my head in all this data, all this indexical nomenclature? It's not reassuring to know the names tonight, lousy and gris-gris and non. Just words to fill space older than a house, a bird, this glass in my hand. This next poem's a little tough to read. It's called Analemma. Does anybody know what an analemma is? It's one of these words that I learned that I really love. An analemma is the figure 8 is the pattern that the sun makes above our heads. So if you were to photograph the sun outside your door every day at, let's say, 1 o'clock, if you did it for a whole year, it would create this sign for infinity. This is where we get the sign for infinity. The number 8 is the analemma, and it's the course the sun makes. And it's only particular to the Earth. They just did one on Mars, and it's the shape of an almond. But I like these kind of things. But, you know, we talked today in class about how poems can do things in your life, and this poem was written after I took care of my mother. And it's one of those things that happens in life, that you care for a parent. And so, yeah. I think that poems can do many things for us, and we can write poems in many different states, and they do a real work. Analemma. That I came back to live in the region both my parents died into, that I will die into. If I have nothing else, I have this, and it's not morbid to think this way, to see things in time, to understand I'll be gone, that the future is already somewhere. I'm in that somewhere, and what of it? It's okay to see these things, to be the way they are. I can be them, have been them, will be there soon. I know why I came here, to be back here where my parents went. I know that I'll be there to join them soon. It's okay to think this way. Why shouldn't I? Who's going to say I shouldn't? A doctor, some friend? I have no wife in this. At night, late, the dark, myself at the ceiling. The arguments continue. I'm with it. It's with me. I am quelque chose, something with birds in it. A storm high above Albany. I am ghost brain, I, sister to all things cruelty. The mouse-back gray of every afternoon, and you're sorrowing now that you're gone and I'm here, or now that you're here and I'm gone, or now that you're gone and I'm gone. What did we learn? What did we take from that? Oh, always dilating, now that you're here and also gone. I am just learning that threshold in changing light, a leafy-shaped blue drifting above an upstate New York Mohican light, a tungsten light, boxcar lights, an oaken table wrapping archival light, burnt over, shaking. And the last one from this book, another poem that Lewis chose. A note on the text. The good poets defy things with their heart. This is how a fragment enters the people. Don't say beauty, say the beautiful, say the people. Say it is through chance that writing entered the people, their imagery and love of nature in glutted flowers. This place of fleshlessness, here is my song, the only recourse of sun. Even its smallest syllables can be sewn into the mouth. It is on the tongue the sun abides, 2 syllables fastened to each end, to stretch the vocal pattern, its linen-like thread. I'm going to read a few poems from my most recent book, or my last book, Archeophonics. And I define Archeophonics as the retrieval or the recovery of lost, like the archaeology, the retrieval of lost or buried sound. And I think it's one of the things that poets do. We bring back into the world of light and speech for an instant the poets that, who these affiliated sources, these poets that inspired us to write. And it's one of the beautiful things about poetry. But we were talking about voice, and I think this poem speaks to that. Archeophonics. I'm just visiting this voice. I'm just visiting the molecular structures that say what I am saying. I am just visiting the world at this moment, and it's on fire. It's always been on fire. I'm saying this and it's saying me. That's how it works, seesaw-like, the archive in the mouth, and the archive is on fire. That's the story, the sun in the body and the body in the sun. It was like this, just like this, the world that's coming toward me and the world around me. Around me are words saying this, saying fire, saying something, or all of it. Here's a poem in a melancholy mood. When orbital proximity feels creepy. Right now there are teenage microwaves screaming through your body while you are having text with me. This is the moment I'll need you to sing with me. I'm making my way in some dark room looking for other structures to love. From the left, something speaking I can't identify. The floor goes unfixed and moving, and this doesn't happen only at night, but during the day when I don't want to think on it. That I saw a blood orange ball caught out my window. That I'm listening to light, and it said time. I'm listening to time. It says, ha, you need to be howling at bloody torn space, need to be spooked out of your hidey hole and its glowing mess. But I love this ball I'm riding on, the strange hunk of metal and rock whizzing around my loves and my loving, the fact I spin and it spins, and everything is spinning close up. From far away, it's so cool. I guess they call this physics, or they call it laws. If they're so well made, why do we suffer? I thought the day was opening, but now I see it's already gone. Outside, the cruel dove has a broken window. The day isn't friendly. Who are you to me? A way to understand the floor that holds me up and leaves me standing. I don't know where to go. Me, Tuesday at 5 p.m. What does it mean to be in a room, any room? The wind banging against the clapboard. I know enough to see the cracked pane isn't going to be fixed any time soon. Who has time for such things in the song? Breaking, blooming, the wobble of light on wood grain late in the day, in the loneliness of orange, in the loveliness of orange. Do you know that moment of the day when you're just totally overtaken by the sun, the red sun setting, and a room is just imbued and filled with that melancholy light? I mean, I find that orange to be deep. At any rate, it helped me write a poem. Here's another strange title. My poems get stranger as I go forward. This one's called Release the Darkness to New Lichen. But I found a way to say no to the wood in my house. It kept creaking, wouldn't stop talking. I found a way to say no. I need to be standing in the warmth of the wood that the sun made. I need to find myself dissolving, otherwise I'm lost. Did I say that? I saw the frill of light today walking on the path. Could you hear the stirring in the wood, pine needles in the branches? Was it wind or a creature? Am I here or is it over? This was the first day, the nothing day, in the nothing year. It gave me courage. It gave hints of blue, clouds electrical and dancing. It gave me rays I've never seen, shooting down, touching things. This was the first day. This next poem takes its title from the opening of a great Emily Dickinson poem. This world is not conclusion, a species stands beyond, invisible as music, but positive as sound. I teach in Amherst, Massachusetts, and where she lived and wrote, and we think of her as the advanced guard, or we simply think of her as a badass. I mean, she just wrote the most remarkable, enduring poetry, and is maybe probably the greatest of all American poets, at least for me she is. So I was asked by the head of the Dickinson Museum, they were asking poets to come and spend an hour in her bedroom. And I thought that was a strange ask, so I said, thank you, but I'm busy. And then Michael called like about 8 months later, and then I said I couldn't do it. And then about a year had gone by, and I wasn't writing. And he asked me again. So I said, I'll try anything. So I took her poems with me in a notebook, and I wrote this poem, as strange as it sounds, in her bedroom. It is strange, right? That's kind of strange. But I like the poem. This world is not conclusion. When I look out your window, I see another window. I see a wedding in my brain, a stylus and a groove, a voice waving there. When I look out your window, I see another window. These trees are not real. They grow out of air. They fell like dust. They fell. So singing is seeing, and vision is music. I saw diadems and crowns, daisies and bees, ribbons, robins, and discs of snow, sprung effects, and pencil light. When I look out your window, I see another window. I see a fire and a girl, crimson hair and hazel eyes, a public in the sky. When the world comes back, it will be recorded sound. That cooing shrub will be known as Dickinson. The syllabic, fricative, percussive, emphatic will tear open out your window. I see another window. I see a funeral in the air. I see alabaster space. I read circumference there. A lot of the nouns in this poem come from her poetry. Who's read Emily Dickinson here? You all have. Who likes Emily Dickinson here? Great. She just gets better and better as we move forward in time. And I love what she called her subject, her interest in death and immortality. She called it her flood subject. I always think that's a beautiful term, to have a flood subject. Here's a small little poem. Rainy days and Mondays. Over thee all this and under thee all that. Between this yes and that yes, hauntedness. Between the girl and arrows, the long ago and far away. Between galaxy and litter, talking to myself. For now, a song. I'm going to read one poem from a longer series called Field Recordings from this book, which is a meditation on language. This one's called Strangeness Becomes You. The old language is the old language. It don't mean shit. It's not where you begin, it's how you finish. Everyone's got beer muscles when they're young. Try as you must, break as you will. Solo in space, clinging to space. Fuck, the air said, passing a corner, a long ropey snot hitting a gutter, to know something and fail. Why discount it, the onslaught of eyes beneath a fuck you sky? The syntax breaks down its mangled draft and says, one day the poor will have nothing to eat but the rich. I hate that when syntax connects me to the rich. Here's a new poem. This is a street where I live. That I saw the light on Nonotuck Avenue. That every musical note is a flame, native in its own tongue. That between bread and ash there is fire. That the day swells and crests. That I found myself born into it with sirens and trucks going by out here in a poem. That there are other things that go into poems, like the pigeon, cobalt, dirty windows, sun. That I have seen skin in marble, eye in stone. That the information I carry is mostly bacterial. That I am a host. That the ghost of the text is unknown. That I live near an Air Force base and the sound in the sky is death. That sound, like old poetry, can kill us. That there are small things in the poem, paper clips, gauze, tater tots, and knives. That there can also be emptiness fanning out into breakfast rolls, macadam, stars. That I am hungry. That I seek knowledge of the ancient sycamore that also lives in the valley where I live. That I call to it. That there are airships overhead. That I live alone in my head out here in a poem near a magical tree. That I saw the light on Nonotuck Avenue and heard the cry of a dove recede into a rustle, that its cry was quiet light falling into a coffin, that it altered me. that today the river is a camera obscura bending trees, that I sing this of metallic shimmer, sing the sky, the song, all of it, and wonder if I am dying, would you come back for me? And I'll finish with this small poem here. The present is constant elegy. Those years when I was alive, I lived the era of the fast car. There were silhouettes in gold and royal blue, a half-light in tire marks across a field, times when the hollyhock spoke. There were weeds in a hopescape, as in a painted backdrop there is also a face. And then I found myself, when the poem wanted me in pain, writing this. The sky was always there, but useless, and what of the blue flocks on stage and morphing? Chance blossoms so quickly, it's a wonder we recognize anything, wanting one love to walk out of the ground. Passion comes from a difficult world. I'm sick of twilight when the light is crushed, time unravels its string. Along the way, I discovered a voice, a sun-stroked path choked with old light, a ray already blown. Look at the world, its veil. Thank you. People want to. I don't know. I feel like I'm holding them hostage.
If you don't feel like you're being held hostage and want to ask Peter a question, he'd be happy to answer it, probably. Depends what the question is, I guess.
Sure.
Figured out a question.
Excellent.
So you mentioned song a lot, or you have in these poems.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about writing songs, or even trying to sing some of these?
Well, I like to, I think you could hear that there's a sonic quality to my poetry, and I'm really interested in the musicality of speech and of language. And so that's a form of singing for me. I have a brother who's a singer-songwriter, and he's very upset with me because he always asks me to write lyrics for him, and I find that to be that's a totally different form of composition. I find it really hard to do, to make rhymes and end rhymes and have things kind of like break down in quatrains and things like that. It's just not how my nervous system works. But I do help him with lines. But I wish I could have been a rock star, but it didn't happen.
Any questions?
Yeah.
First of all, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming.
I wondered, you're talking about flood subjects.
Right.
Since you brought it up.
Yeah.
I wondered if you could talk about like what is or what have been or what has been flood subjects for you. How you see that kind of.
I think loss is one. I think loss set me on the condition of poetry. I mean, if you want me to be personal, relay a personal story. So when I was young, my father was killed in a plane crash when I was 12, which I saw. And my world was broken, absolutely shattered. And my older brother was a poet. He's dead now. And he wrote poems when I was young. And so he wrote a line in a poem called Requiem in March, which said, "If it was only a plane crash, why didn't you walk from the wreckage?" And that line completely just opened up my mind that, yeah, my father was bigger than a plane crash. I don't understand why this didn't happen. But what I really discovered was that poetry could do this job of creating a linguistic figure that would somehow relieve or give relief to a condition of grief. And so I think by that, I just found my way into reading about poetry. And I've suffered a lot of losses, so I think that grief or loss is a big subject for me. I think, you know, people say I'm a lyric poet, but I like to say that I'm a narrative poet, and I'm just narrating my bewilderment as a citizen, because I find the world to be pretty unstable politically, and has been most of my life. People speak about it now in particular. Today's a big day in the Senate, but it's been unstable for my entire life. I'm 59. It's been one thing after another. So that panic that can still come upon me works today too. So I would say that bewilderment of being a citizen and trying to find some interiority, and how do I deal with the damaged languages that come at me every day, and as language somehow degrades, how do I find a way to give it some kind of vertical imagination, to give it some kind of lift? So that's another thing. Bewilderment would be one of my flood subjects. But that's a good question. I'm actually thinking of calling my next book Flood Subject, but then I'd have to explain everything. So it's either that or I call it Speech Acts for a Dying World. I'm not quite sure. I don't know what to do. I'm thinking about it. Do you want, Any other questions? Yeah.
Sort of going off of that, you're talking about like unstableness or focus and stuff like that. Have you ever considered doing like slam poetry about something like that?
I admire it, and I've actually judged a slam once, which was fun, and I really admire it. I think it's for someone who's younger than me. Sadly, I think I'm now calcified. No, I'm now just. It's just. I don't think I have the what do you call it? The moves. That you know. It's really slam poetry is really physical. It's people are almost kind of like they're really performing, and I admire it, though. I have a lot of students who are interested in slam, and I try to help them with that. And slam is a place where there's a kind of, I don't know, they're kind of like lyrics in a way. They tell stories. I wish I could tell stories. I don't. I read them. How about you? Do you like slam poetry?
I love slam poetry. I've only ever written and performed one, and I was back in high school.
Yeah, and you enjoyed that?
Yeah.
You could
it
keep.
was my first time like reading in front of a huge group of people out like a convention type thing.
It's terrifying, isn't it? But you liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, you're a performer. You should keep doing it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wait, we have one more. Sorry, I'll let you guys go.
So you write a lot about loss and different stuff like that. You had the one about the sun, orange moon, or the orange rays coming into the room.
Right.
Do you just find it harder to write about stuff that makes you happy or melancholy for that?
I find that joy and grief are twinned. I think that they're approximate. I think that they're always together. And so I'd like to believe that my poem, I'd like to think of the song or the poem as a bit ecstatic, you know, a bit unstable and a bit giddy. And I like that kind of frequency, which is part of the leaps that my poems take. I feel when I'm making meaning, I leap from one image to the next to the next. I think it creates a kind of instability, but also because of the sonic patterning, there's inevitability because of the song quality. So I like to think that my poems are kind of, they're not just despairing, but they're also, they find the joy in the face of loss. I would like to believe that's that I can manage that. That's what I hope for them. Yeah. Wait, okay, one more, we should stop. Okay, I feel like I'm holding you hostage.
When you write, do you say the line out loud to make sure that it's in the rhythm?
Absolutely.
You do, okay.
Yeah, I read everything out loud when I write back. When I read back what I've just written, I read it out loud, always. And then I revise it by taking walks in my neighborhood, and then I continue to revise in my head as I walk, which in walking, you know, creates a kind of definite pace, a definite movement. And so I rehearse it in my head, and that's how I revise. Is like I walk and I mean, my neighbors, they all know I'm a poet, so they know I'm crazy. So, but they'll see me walk around the neighborhood talking to myself. And basically what I'm doing is just rehearsing my poems as I write them. And I love that moment when I've first written something and it's new and I'm figuring it out, and it's my favorite thing of all. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here, and good luck with your studies, good luck with your school year, good luck to Lewis, who I love. Thank you for having me, and thanks so much, everyone.